Hey, nonprofit visionaries, it's Shalita, the nonprofit Easter O'Neill. Let's talk about grant writing. There's levels to this. We talk about the money all the time because we need the money to do the work, but you don't know what you don't know. So I'm here to at least break it down a little bit. So depending on where you are with your nonprofit organization, you can take a look and see, okay, what types of proposals should I be looking for, or what should I be expecting, the effort that I should be expecting to put in to certain types of grants and grant writing. So I'm going to talk about three different levels. Probably could be more levels, but I'm gonna break it down into three levels because ain't nobody got a whole lot of time, right? Y'all got things to do. So first, seed dollars. We're gonna talk about what goes into that. You got your seed dollars. Second level is you're growing your programming and you need support around growing your programming. Third level is sustaining your operations. So you got operations going on, you got a shop to run, you've got people that are depending on you to bring in the funds, and that's a different level of grant writing. Let's start with the seed dollars. Now, if you're just getting started, you're just launching your organization, kudos to you. Let's start with the seed dollars. And this is good news for you because typically funders at this level, they're not risk averse, right? They understand that you're just getting started and that you're trying to feel things out and figure out how you want to run your programming and if it's going to be successful. So at this level, at the seed level, the funders typically give a little bit less. So it's not a big grant, but if you get enough of these small seed grants, they add up to really help you get things started. So the expectations around your programming and what you're able to do is fairly low. Now, not to say that they don't expect you to use the money properly and hoping for success for you, but they also understand that if that doesn't happen, that's okay. They're prepared for that. It's seed dollars. All right. Now, the proposal process, typically they don't want a whole lot of information. They don't need 10, 15, 20, 30 pages about the organization and the programming and all of that. So when we're at that level one, that seed level, the expectations are typically lower and there's a shorter grant proposal process or application that they're asking for, and they're not risk averse, so they understand what's going on. At this level, you do not need a grant writer because the writing is simple. Now, I understand writing is not everybody's strength. I get it. But instead of going straight to, okay, well, I need to pay somebody or figure out how I'm going to get some money together at this level, to get to write this grant, go to your board. That's your tribe. They're supposed to be partners in this with you anyway, because part of their responsibility is to help you raise the funds that you need to operate. So let's keep that in mind. Maybe there's a board member that's the chair or on the committee, the fundraising committee or the finance committee, that can help you pull this information together and draft it together and do that on behalf of the organization at no cost. So look at them at this level. Mm-mm. They're not, these funders are not requiring a grant writer at this level. Okay. And they're not asking for really stringent reporting processes. Now they may need you to give them an annual report, a write-up, a summary, a quick write-up of what have you done with the funds? Has it been successful? What are some of the challenges you've experienced? What are some of the successes that you have experienced? They might want to know these things, but the reporting process is not as stringent because again, they're just wanting to support you and your growth. So that's level one, seed dollars. Now, level two, I say you've gotten past the seed dollars. Now you've gotten your seed money and you need to hire a couple of people to maybe part-time initially start building it out, or just to start building out your programming to get some traction going with what you said you're going to do and your mission. Now, this is a different level. Now, again, this is where I like to say the grant writing is a follow-up to an in-person meeting. I tell you all the time, grant writing is not fundraising. It's a tool. It's an important tool, and you will use it over and over and over again. But once we get to this level two, when you're trying to grow your programming, you're going to be asking for a little bit more money. So you're going to need to start building up rapport with funders in your community when you can. Now, you may not be able to do, depending on if you're getting national funding or if you're applying for something nationally, or, maybe the funder is not in your state or something like that. But still, you should be trying to reach out via email initially. You should be trying to set up a phone call to see, let's talk about my program, your program. Let's see how we align. Start building up that rapport in one way, shape, or form. And if you can meet with them, the program manager, in person, not to ask for money, but again, to explore, how do our missions align? How can I help you as the funder create an impact in the community or implement your vision in the community? That's what that meeting will be. And typically, if they like you, they like you. I told you, they fund people, not organizations. But if they like you and your organization, you've got your stuff together and the content is good and you know what you're trying to do, then they might say, well, okay, our grant proposal is coming up. Our timeline is, our grant process is coming up, and I think you should submit a proposal to us. All right, now we're talking business. Now, in this stage, that grant writing is a follow up to that in person meeting, relationship building. Okay. You're establishing the alignment that you have together. Now, typically, when you get to this level, they like to use the common grant application. And depending on where you are, it might be called something different, but it's a standard outline of what they typically want you to answer in a grant proposal, because funders do not have a whole bunch of time to read through umpteen pages of your proposal, especially when you're not asking for that much money. So it makes your life easier. You could say, okay, well, I've got this template. I'm going to plug and play into this template. Make sure I'm putting in, if there's, some funders may have some specific or special requirements or question they want you to answer that might not be in the common grant application. But if you have a common grant application, again, I'll put the link for you if you don't. If you have a common grant application that you have already put together and drafted up, which I suggest you do, so that you have it, so you can pull from that template, pull from it from when you're doing these proposals, so you're not starting from scratch all over again. And at this level 2, you don't need a grant writer. Now, if you are applying for a whole bunch of different, maybe 15, 20 different grants, and they're all asking you for proposals, and it's about the time issue, again, go to your board, number one, your finance committee, to see if you can get some sort of support and have the board finance committee help pull that information together for you, or in partnership with you, so that you don't have to put money out there that you don't have for a grant writer at this point. But I always tell you, consider which grant you're applying for and what their requirements are, the time commitment, what goes into pulling that grant together. If it's, a crazy amount of time that you don't have because you're wearing so many different hats. And at this level, you might want to consider, if you don't have a board member that can help you, which if you don't, we need to have a conversation. But if you don't have a board member that can help you, and you don't have any volunteer support as part of your organization to help you, then you would consider hiring a grant writer at this point. All right. So let's make that clear. You don't need to, but if you have to, this is where you do it. Now, your seed dollars, you don't need a grant writer for that. Level 3, sustaining operations. Now you in the big leagues right now. Now you hired people looking to you to bring in money to the organization. They're looking to you for guidance. Okay. You've got a real budget that you have to support and bring in. And at this level, the funders that you are applying to are also in the big leagues. They give out millions of dollars, they give out a lot of money. And depending on the amount of money that you're asking for at this level, you could be asking for some serious dollars. And if you are, the expectations are higher. There are high expectations here. They have reporting requirements. They're asking you about your data, your measures of success. They want to know all of these things. This could be the point also where you're applying for federal funding. Say you've been around for a minute. Okay. Now you're getting settled. You want to apply for something at the federal level, or it's the state level, and they're still involved. So if you're applying, maybe you're applying for a contract from an agency or a grant from a state agency, the expectations are a lot higher. You know why? because they report to the federal government. They have federal dollars, possibly, that they are handing down, that they are responsible for. And the federal government, the federal dollars, the people that are administering the federal money have high expectations of them. So guess what? They're going to have high expectations of you at this level. High, high, high. So typically with this, it would require financial statements. They may be asking you for 3 years of financial statements. They may even ask you for audited statements. And depending on how big your budget is, if it's depending on what state you're in and what the requirements are. I know in Maryland, if you make $250,000 or more with your nonprofit, you are required to have an audit and have someone come in and look at your financial statements and audit your statements. So that's a whole nother level. But the outcome of that, either if it's audited financials or unaudited financials, at this level, in the big leagues, as part of your grant writing, you may be asked to provide those documents. Okay. They want a track record of your work. You have to provide evidence that what you're doing or what you have been doing in the community is working and that they should invest in you. This is high expectations here. This is big leagues right here. You also might need to collect letters of support from nonprofit organizations or partners in the community who are supporting your work, who can vouch for you, who, when the funder looks at your application and they see this letter of support and they recognize this organization, they say, oh my goodness, oh, they're working together. Oh, okay, that may add a couple points to your application. So those letters of support are very important. You may even need to have a memorandum of understanding or MOU with another nonprofit organization. Let's say you're partnering under this grant with someone else, with another entity or multiple nonprofit organizations. You need to have a memorandum of understanding which with each of those organizations that outlines the services that they're going to provide to your organization under this grant, and be very clear how much money do they get from this, what percent. They in essence could be considered subcontractors. So not only are they providing a letter of support, but they are also providing a signed MOU between your organization and their organization that outlines how you're going to work together. So we're getting in the big leagues, right? And then you look at that, and sometimes these MOUs might be with the local agency or a local state agency if you're applying for federal funds, or if you're applying for state money and there's a local agency that you're working with. They really like to see that. They like to see those partnerships. So be prepared to have those sorts of collaborations together and to be able to provide that type of documentation at level 3, at this level. I will also tell you, at this level, hiring a grant writer is necessary. You have a lot of different moving parts. And to that point, when you get to this level and you're applying for this level of funding, it's not about an individual grant writer. It's not about one person. This thing here is about a team. You will need to assemble a grant writing team for this proposal, which would consist of a grant writer, because that person will be responsible for bringing all the information together in a cohesive document based off of the expectations and requirements of the funder. But you're also going to need to include your board, someone from your finance committee or your fundraising committee on the board. You're going to also need to include your program coordinators because they're doing the actual work. So there's going to be need to collect data and information from them. And especially at this level as the executive director, you may not be having as much hands-on with the program as you may have in the past if you are a funder. Maybe you're not or founder. Maybe you're not a founder, but you don't have that direct service. You have to oversee everything else. You don't have the time to be able to be on the grassroots level, right? Or direct service with the clients or with the program coordinators, but the program coordinators do. So you need them to be at the table as well. Your accountant, the person that's keeping your books, needs to also be a part of this grant writing collaborative or this grant writing team, because like I just said before, the financials, if this funder wants audits or audited financials or non-audited financials or the budget, your bookkeeper is going to need to compile information to go into this. So rule of thumb, anyone that is going to need to give you information on your team to help compile and bring together this proposal is going to need to be on your grant writing team, not just the grant writer. And as always, I say, regardless at what level you engage a grant writer, be prepared to have funds up front to pay them. Do not have them work and say, if we get this grant, you will get funding. It's unethical because they're putting in work up front. Number one. And number two, if you get the funding, funders do not like for their money to go to a grant writer when you ask for the money to go towards your programming. It's unethical. So let's keep that in mind too. Okay? Make sure. Mm-hmm. Another suggestion at the level 3 level is to reach out to, when you're doing your research on this funder, this potential funder, they're big wigs now. It's easy to find who they've given to in the past and who their previous grantees are. Find out who they are, reach out to them and say, what do you suggest? What worked for you? We're trying to apply for this funding. You know, what would you get? What tidbits or pieces of advice would you give to me as I'm working to apply for this funding? I know the first thing comes to your mind, well, they're not going to want to help me because it's going to be competition. No, no. It could be somebody they funded in the past and they're no longer funding. And, you could reach out to them. They might be in your community and you could reach out to them and maybe not even in your community. Maybe they're in another state. Who knows? But reach out to them to gather information because they're going to be reaching out to other people to gather information on you. So know what you're getting into, know what things they like to see so that could strengthen your grant proposal. All right? So let's go back. Let's recap because y'all know I like to recap on recap with you. There's 3 levels. There's 3 levels to this grant writing thing. One is seed dollars when you're just getting started, and the types of organizations or funders that you're going to be applying for, their expectations are lower because they understand you're just getting started. They understand you're trying to figure things out. And sometimes not only are their expectations lower, but the amount of money that they're willing to give you is also lower, which is fine. Every little bit counts. It adds up. If you have a number of different seed funders coming in, that adds up to help you move your work forward. The reporting processes are not as stringent. They may want you to do an annual report, just giving the overview of what helped you, successes, your challenges, but they're not going to dig in with you on certain types of reporting. At this level, you do not need a grant writer. You go to your board, one of your board members or your board members, period, to ask for help with drafting up a grant proposal, because typically they're not asking for a lot of information in these seed dollar funds or these grants. They're just asking for simple information that you can give. It doesn't take a lot of time to do. So let's conserve our funds, go to our board, who's your tribe and your support, to get some help with drafting it up. Level 2 is when you're growing your programming. Now you're past the seed phase. The seed phase has been successful because now you're growing to a point where you need to really implement your programming. You might need to bring on part-time people and support and help with this. So the types of funders that you're reaching out to, they may also be seed dollar funders, but when you start asking for more money, then the expectations, it gets a little higher. So they're going to be expecting a little bit more from you. The application process may be a little bit longer, or the proposal that they're asking for may be a little bit longer, but it won't be longer than 6, 7 pages, 10 pages at the max. They are also not looking for a book from you, but they are looking for a little bit more substance, more content to which you say you're going to provide. And hopefully you already have that. So they will be looking at what are your measures of success? What are your outcomes? What have you been able to do thus far? Who is currently supporting you? And their reporting may be a little bit more involved, no more than maybe 2 pages, or nowadays everybody's on using online software to do reporting. So you go on, you log in, you do your reporting, should you get the grant. So it's not a crazy, involved situation. But at this level, you want to start creating rapport or developing rapport with grant funders or with your funders, right? So that means if you can, sit down with them, have a meeting without asking for money before this grant writing piece comes into play, because grant writing is a tool. That's going to be a follow-up. Initially, you want to try to develop a face-to-face rapport with this potential funder. That's going to help a lot. Now, If you want to bring on a grant writer at this point, because if you have a number of different funders that you're trying to, apply to because you either build up relationships with or you just need some support and your board for whatever reason cannot provide that support or will not provide that support, they won't. We got to talk about it. I told y'all we got to talk about it. But then you consider hiring a grant writer, have funds up front to provide to this grant writer. You may at this level also need to include letters of support with your proposal or MOUs with this proposal, but typically not necessarily MOUs at this point, but letters of support never hurt. And at this level, they're asking for them, and they may be asking for them. Now we get to level 3, which is you are sustaining your operations. You are a larger organization, or you're going after the big dollars. You have to be ready to know that they have a higher expectation, high expectations reporting, higher expectations of that. They want numbers. You should be collecting all kinds of data based off of what they said that they would like to know about, making sure you have that. Typically, the proposals are longer in length. This might be the federal piece. It might be because some of these federal grants are 100 pages. And at this level, you may need to bring together a grant writing team. It's not just about a grant writer. It's about a complete team of people who are going to be giving information to this grant writer so that they can pull it all together in a cohesive document. Okay. And even at this level, to be conserving the funds with the grant writer, this could be the responsibility of an existing program manager or a director that brings all the information together in that document but works alongside of the team. So at this, I mean, I know that's what I used to do as well. We didn't pay a grant writer to come in and do any of our grant writing. We did that ourselves, but there were different grants that we had to come together, and I had to bring a team together of folks that are going to be providing different information. And then I brought the information together and the document and in a way that the funder wanted to see it. So, but if at this level, you might have some funds to play with. So you can get your grant writer, but you're going to need your team. And you're going to want to reach out to previous grantees and collect information on this funder to make sure that you're getting those brownie points. You're positioning yourself to get this grant. You've got MOUs in place. You've got letters of support from different well-known organizations in the community to help strengthen your proposal. All right, so I hope this has been helpful to let you know not only when to engage a grant writer, but also what's going to be required of you at different levels based off of the funds that you are applying for. Now, y'all know if y'all need additional support or you're like, Shalita, okay, I get that. All right. But then I need help with my board because they not blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's do some one-on-one. Okay. And if you want to do that, go to shalitaoneal.com and let's talk about how we can get together and make sure you get some money coming into your organization. Until next time, get the money, but be blessed.